So I'm here today with Joe Jankowski from Braskem. And Joe has been kind enough to talk to us today about the work that he does and the way that he leads the clients that he works with. So Joe, can you take a moment just to tell us about the job that you do and the
Sure.
company you work for? I think that would be helpful too.
Sure, Melinda, no problem. I work for Braskem, as you said, and that is a chemical and plastics company. We're the biggest plastics company in the Americas. And what I do for my company is sell the green polyethylene, which is a bio-based polyethylene here in North America. So what I do is typical business-to-business account management. So I'm the interface with our traditional clients. And I also, in this role, have a unique opportunity to talk to my clients' clients and their clients. So in a lot of cases, I'm talking to brands and retailers in the marketplace, in addition to my traditional clients.
Okay. And you shared that when you work with all of those different kind of brands and retailers and even their clients beyond that, how do you make each one of them feel like they're part of your team?
Well, I ask a lot of questions to learn who really they are and where they are, so that I can understand the scenario through kind of a sympathetic, approach, and try to see things through my client's perspective, the brand's perspective, and/or the retailer's perspective. So a lot of the questions that I ask initially are, what is driving them to speak to Braskem or to consider bioplastics? And in the answers, I find there's a lot of detail that I can deal with and then adjust to my approach to where it needs to be so that it's relevant.
Okay. How do you said you also try to think of where they are. How do you figure out kind of what their personality is, or where they are in their maturity level and their ability to lead the relationship versus your ability to lead the relationship?
Well, that's a nice segue into the tailoring of the interaction, because ultimately it's all about communication, and that's why I wanted to start off with asking a lot of questions so that we understand where we're starting from, and then based on whether I find that there's a need for more education, then I can adjust and pivot towards becoming a role where I'm more of a teacher and maybe a director of the relationship. If they're like a little bit less aware, or if we're meeting right where we're in the same kind of level knowledge basis, then we just candidly talk about it in a way that we handle a project, and then we make assignments based on who has the capacity to take on next steps, and we divvy up the work. Or if there's more of a traditional sales role where I'm just selling the resin and educating my client so as to enable them to educate the brands and the retailers, then it's more of like a consultative role. And depending upon the answers to the questions and the relationships that we develop and how I interact with everyone, then I pivot based on the feedback that I get.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You'll often hear leaders say things, or people say things like, well, this is my leadership style, or, so I'm directive, that's my leadership style, or, oh, I'm very hands-on, I like to get in there and help people do things, that's my leadership style. But it sounds like you're tailoring your leadership style to fit the different scenario that you're faced with. How do you push yourself toward that level of adaptability?
It's one of these things where you evolve and as a leader. And I tried in the beginning of this role to be really leaning forward and to push the product that I'm trying to get out there in the market and make a market for and educate people about. And in a lot of cases, there was a lot of receptivity to it. And however, I saw that even if I lean forward and I'm really directive and outgoing and positive, and and very much in folks' space and on the phone with them and or talking with them, that it didn't really move the needle a lot. So you evolve and you adjust according to where they're at, instead of trying to be very aggressive. And so then it becomes more of a conversation, and or you know, a thoughtful approach that enables you to lead better, so that you're generating the credibility, you're generating the rapport, and you're becoming the reference or resource that they need, instead of the alternative, or instead of other, you know, maybe not relevant dialogues that you may wind up having.
That's right on. You couldn't have said it better. I'm still getting excited because I know how well this fits with the content that we're going to be sharing with the students. So it's just a really great example. My last question for you today is just, can you think of a time that either someone on your team, whether it was a client or someone who works with you, was struggling, and the struggle could have been in their maturity and their ability to get the work done, or could have been in their confidence or competence, could have been even just struggling personality-wise to fit in. But when someone was struggling and you kind of used your leadership style matched with their level of need to help them through the situation.
Sure. There have been many cases where the folks that I'm dealing with are maybe at the level I am in my company, and that is you know, the managerial level where I don't necessarily have the direction or the ability to direct the ship and steer the ship, and that's frustrating to some folks. Mm-hmm. So I try to match what I can bring to the table, or bring my skills to people where they have similar challenges. And so if they're trying to, for instance, lead from below, and they become the expert through interaction with Braskem, they become the expert about bioplastics, and now they're having challenges convincing folks to use bioplastics, then I try to lend my skill set and Braskem's wherewithal to them, so that they become even more capable at trying to communicate with their organizations internally, and to lead from below, so that they're not as frustrated, and they become more impactful, and become a resource within their own organizations. So that's I've seen that happen a lot, and I try to lend my skills and my leadership so that they can lean on me and or lean on Braskem, so as to bolster their own causes.
Yeah, I love the term lead from below. I think it's better. People often use the term manage up, but to me that almost implies that and maybe it's a separate situation, but it often implies that the person who's managing you needs to be managed because they're not doing a great job. But lead from below, I would think companies around the world would welcome, because that's just encouraging leadership at all levels. And so I think that's great that you're encouraging that and working to develop that in the brands the clients you work with.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's rewarding. So that's why I love to do it, because it ultimately allows me to learn and continue growing myself. But then, yeah, the engagement and seeing it come to life is something that I love doing.
That's awesome. Well, that's the end of my questions. Is there anything you want to share? I know you've been involved with Cable in the past. We've got our second cohort joining us now. So this is the new crop of students who are joining. Is there anything you want to share with them before we close out today?
Well, sure. I mean, from my perspective, this is a great opportunity to maybe send a message to all the new students that are coming into our bioeconomy. Hey, you guys are the future. So embrace this opportunity to try new things, to learn new concepts, and what the future is all about, because you guys are ultimately are going to be able to create that future. And lastly, let us know how we can help in industry. So good luck, and keep charging forward.